Make yourself comfortable. Okay, it's a Friday afternoon, so we don't want to work too hard. We want to have some fun, not just us, but you also. But we're here for the learning, so let's mix fun and learning. Before I carry on, actually, I do a lot of panels, and sometimes the good panelists and learned people, and their old friends, Brian, Ken, James and I go back to high school, and Elvin and I go back many years also. Hi. So anyway, I'm very honored to be this very learned gentlemen. Some of them get very stressed because when they are asked to sit on a panel, they want to prepare with the moderator. What questions are you going to ask? So I said, forget it. No, I told Grace, no, we will not prepare. We will not prepare what are the questions I'm going to ask and what the answers. So we're going to be totally spontaneous simply because they are already accomplished experts in their field. And we don't want to, we want to be spontaneous. That's the best way to learn. In the same manner, later on, we ask you to invite questions. The questions that come from you are spontaneous based on what you heard today. So the way I work is this. I will ask one question, and all four will answer the same questions for their perspective. For example, Brian Esquire is, from the legal, non-technology point of view, although it's about technology. Ken So is a CIO, so is an end-user practitioner. James Wu is a CIO, so practitioner, but from different, one from industrial and one from healthcare. And whatever past, you were CIO of karaoke before, sorry, I'm just joking. Okay, so different industry, and Elvin coming from a solutions provider, but a strategic, again, not just selling stuff, but the strategic, perspective, the solutions, not so much the solutions per se, but the perspective. What are CIOs telling you? What do you want? So you're bouncing off from what you heard from there. So the theme of this afternoon's forum is, we've heard this before. It's not a matter of if, but when we will be attacked. And as Ken earlier on insinuated, in many cases we've already been attacked. And the punchline question is, how should organizations respond? And I'll break that into two questions. Number one, gentlemen, and good gentlemen and ladies here, how should organizations respond not to the attack? That's the second question. But to the idea of, so we are CIOs trying to tell our CEOs, not if but when, assume we are already attacked. So based on your work and your relationship with other people in the field, what do you see of this concept? How would an organization respond to the idea? If I come and tell you, it's not if, it's when we're attacked. What's your reaction to this concept? You've got a mic. You start, and it will go that way. Then, so same idea. Then you can build on each other's responses.
So thank you.
Did you understand my question?
Yeah, I understand your question. And it's a very famous quote, of course, made by no less than our law minister. And I think a couple of things we have to think about this particular threat that we are looking at. And coming from the lawyer's position, we are very familiar with things like criminal law. And the thing with cyber criminals and with your normal average bank robber criminal, I think there are a couple of differences. One, the cyber criminal is extremely intelligent. He's got advanced computing skills, probably top few people in the world. So that's one. It's unlike your bank robber who's probably got a bit more muscles than brains. That's number one. Number two, he has this thing called patience and self-control. Okay, your typical criminal, after he gets his hand on the loot, the first thing, almost all the time you'll see him do is he'll go and spend the money. Okay, he will go to the karaoke bar, he'll go to the casino, whatever, and he'll splurge. A cyber criminal typically will take their goods, which is your data, and they will hide. Okay, they won't go on the internet and, okay, some of them do go on the internet to brag about it, but the majority of them will hide. Okay, they will take cover, they will be very patient until the time that they need to surface with that, then they will surface. And that's why you see that statistics. and that number is rising 180 days, 220 days before a company discovers that they've been hacked. Why? The hackers go in, they take what they need, and then later on they'll surface it. Much later on. That requires a lot of patience, very different from the type of criminals that we have. And so this question about if but not when, right? Oh, sorry, when but not if, is a very real one, because you could already have been hacked. It's just that you don't know it, and then it will come. And so the question for the organizations, I think, is, since it's an inevitable thing that's going to happen, right? What are you going to do about it right now? Some companies that we work with actually went to sell their businesses. Okay, pass it on to somebody else quickly. And because I think 4 days after the sale was completed, they got hacked. Or rather, the stuff appeared, and the new buyer did not bother to get indemnities for a data breach. So it worked out well for them. But I think for the majority of the companies here, that's something serious for you to think about. What are you going to do about it right now?
Thank you. Okay, Ken, I'll save him for last because he's a bad example, because he's actually had the experience of discovering there were enemies in his system before. So I'll save your story for last. We'll go to James. So James, the same thing. You are trying to tell your CEO as the CIO, it's not if, no, it's when. How do you think your CIO will respond to such a concept?
Okay. I mean, lately I've been noticing that zero-day attacks becoming more common. That means it's like even before the virus signature gets released or anything, you're already infected. And that was why in the past I was infected a few times because of that. It's not because we did not have the signature, but the signature haven't even been created yet. The vaccine haven't been there, so-called, right? So we have been attacked. Then I was asking my vendor, some well-known ones, I say, hey, hello, what's wrong, what's going on? It's like, alamak, you know what? You know, so many clients around the world, 1% will kena, you're one of the 1%. I was like, wow, why am I so lucky? In my career, I kena 3 times. I pay pure, also cannot kena 1 time. But doesn't matter. Long and short here is, then I find that things are changing. The security landscape has really changed. The attack profile, the way they attack, the threat actors are finding different ways of attacking us. Find different ways. As long as there's a little loophole, they'll do so. Now, so I didn't really sleep well at night for a year plus. But of course, I mean, when you're tired, you sleep lah. So the thing here is, then I told my team, I said, look, you know, there's something fundamental that we are missing in our security posture. Something missing. You have, to be frank, I have my firewall, my intrusion detection. I have my antivirus. So everything I told you, I have it, okay? But I'm still not satisfied because I know that one day somebody will come in and sit inside my network and watch me. And moreover, we are in healthcare. So in healthcare, the thing here is patient data is very important. The last thing I want to do is for them to say, okay, you know what? I'm going to create an incident. I'm going to affect one of these IoT, this medical equipment. I'm making sure that the pump inject 1 cc more than what it should be. Can you imagine what it means? Patient can die. Patient safety, right? So that actually keeps me up at night, so-called. Then eventually what I did was we went to a few POCs, you know, with various vendors, and some of them I use what you call machine learning. You know, so today you're talking about dark trace. So and so we actually work with them. So at the end, to make a long story short, is in a POC we detected abnormal behavior, and from there we took action on 2 cases, and these 2 cases were more towards insider. It's not so much external; it's insider, and so based on that POC itself, already justify my investment to CFO and just say, look, based on this POC, we have detected our ROI already returned in 1 incident.
So that was not an if, but a when. And yes. I say, we'll come back to Ken later. Vigo has got some horror stories which he didn't share just now. I'll say again, now we go to Alvin first. So when you speak to CIOs and you're telling them, hey, it's not an if matter, it's a when matter, what is their immediate responses to you? Could you share 1 or 2? It could be in this country, it could be other countries. What do you see?
It depends on what industry it comes from, the person I'm speaking to. The first reaction I always get is, I have everything, and I'm safe. then I always ask, okay, that's good, but are you sure about that? I mean, we can never have any guarantees. There are only a couple of things that we are sure in life. We definitely die, we definitely go old, we need food to eat, and we need to sleep. So I approach it from that context. So you definitely want your company to thrive. So what does it take for your company to thrive? So a cyber attack is one of the top 2 operational risks highlighted by KPMG and by numerous organizations. So if you don't do anything to address the risk, right, then you are exposing yourself, and that in itself becomes a vulnerability. That arrogance or that complacency and so on and so forth. I often invite them to do some kind of test, or I ask them, how do you measure that your security is successful? What is your yardstick? And sometimes they don't have an answer for me, quite honestly, because they're quite shy to talk about it, or for whatever other reasons. Then I also ask them, do you have a crisis management team? And he says, no, or some of them says, yes, I do. Then I say, do you do fire drills? So I say, in the same way like we do when we are growing up, or in many of the building management systems, when they are anticipating a fire, as part of protocol to ensure that they are safe, they do fire drills. They tell people where to assemble, what passage to take, so that people know. So do you do that? Do you have security drills? Because it's all about reaction when it happens as well. So it's not so much the if, but when, but how do you recover? So I don't stop with the when. I go one step further and say, when it happens, what do you do about it? So I take the discussion to...
That's the next question.
Oh, but I start with that because I'm a big believer of Stephen Covey, begin with the end in mind. So what are you going to do about it when that happens? And that really brings to fruition home when it really happens. So the discussion about if is no longer an issue. The discussion about when is no longer an issue is about how am I going to be tackling it.
Thank you, Alvin. Okay, now I'll tell why I saved Ken for last. So he one day ran an assessment of his company. Again, and his CEO was immediately convinced. Okay, so I'll leave the story to you. What happened?
Okay, maybe I answer your question first. Yeah, the way I see is the traditional way of that 3 angles: people, process, technology. Nothing new, very boring, but it works all the time. So people-wise is I believe in the mindset. It starts from here, because I have talked to quite a lot of tauke, very accomplished tauke, entrepreneur, do very well. So I thought about cyber. They look at me, first thing they ask me is I jiabui? Very simple. Sorry, for foreigners it means, can it be eaten or not? It's P&L. Okay. So the second thing is, hey, I'm not a bank. They won't come and hack me. That sort of mentality. It's all wrong. So I have to educate them that it's not about you, a bank or not. It's that today hackers are so advanced, they just scan the whole world, the weakest point they come in. So they hack the bank indirectly from you. There are a lot of things in this big story. So the best thing is that when you talk about certain thing, that basic thing that you got to protect, get some tools. Oh, this tool is so expensive, $3,000. Oh, okay, let's close the meeting. Then he go off in his Lamborghini, that sort of thing. So the mindset got to be right for a start, and then it's a process where then it's not if or when, but in my view is already, right? So we are already hacked. So you need to do a deep VAPT, vulnerability assessment and pen testing. So for that, I think it can actually find a lot of things from the enterprise. And for that, it's also a big subject, but to cut short is that I call it the Katong Laksa symptom. Everybody also say I can do a VAPT, but test it. Ask their track record. Do we have world-class certification, world-class track record? Are they from country at war, involved in state-funded hacking and things? Come to technology, we can discuss later, but to share with you the experience when we asked the hackers to hack ourselves is that one day we found out that when we started that, I got a text from the hacker team and say, Ken, we got all your databases from internet. I said, wow, that's fantastic. Are you sure? I was very busy. So can we meet? I'm very busy, but I only left lunch, and end up that's the worst lunch in my life. Because I went to lunch, he penned out my whole data table in front of me. Is this your data table? Of course, it's my data. How do you do that? He said, very simple. Your security posture is not bad, but there's one thing you forgot. is upgrade your latest CMS, right? So from there, they gain the vulnerability in, known vulnerability, do SQL injection, scrape table by table, reconstruct the table outside. That's simple, right? You got the whole database out. And while I cannot really digest very well already, he give me another shock, is that you look at the user table, I say it's very normal, my admin and whatever users are there. And then he say, look at the last 2 entries. Wow, 1 entry from Russia, 1 entry from Poland. Wow, that's very nicely there.
Suddenly
so then,
he had the Polish and the Russian employee on his company database. Where did that come from?
yes, so I realized that, oh, now I recall. The last half a year, every 2-3 weeks, there was a logging, lockout, and logging, lockout. So what happened is that the password is encrypted. So this guy actually used SQL injection to inject the entry there, and in attempt to log in from my CMS front end, right? So luckily they didn't match. Yeah, if they match, I think that would be like
Career is over.
yeah, maybe CIO become career is over.
So again, there are horror stories. We don't want to reach a point where we use horror stories to convince our CEO, is this if or when. Now we up the whole story a notch, coming back to Esquire Brian. So from your client, without the litigation, we haven't reached litigation yet. What's the first thing you do if, yes, indeed a breach has happened, like in Ken's case? What would you or your client, what's the first reaction? How the organizations...
I think the first one, the very first thing they do is pull out your crisis plan. I mean, you hope you have your crisis plan there. But pull the crisis plan out, and that's where it starts kicking in. As we've all said, I think the first thing is really you want to contain the breach, make sure it doesn't spread. That's not a legal thing, that's a technical thing. But that's the most important thing. You don't go running away, filing court cases at the first instance. Contain the breach first. After you contain it, then the next thing is obviously you assess the breach. How bad is it? How did it happen? Who's affected? That's basically all information collecting. So once you have the information on what you have, then that's where the action starts. Then at that point in time, that's when the lawyers usually come in. Again, part of your reaction, your response team. The first thing that the lawyers going to do is really to see what notifications we need to do. If you're a bank, you already are aware of this. You have 24 hours to go and fill up a hard copy form and get it over to MES. For the rest of you, currently no strict obligations, but as I said, in 2 years' time, you will have 72 hours to inform the regulator, and then you got to go and inform the people that are affected. And you have to, yeah, it's your breach disclosure. That's only in Singapore. The tricky point is if you have multiple jurisdictions, some countries got 24-hour notification, some got 72, some have got 1 week, some have got 30 days. But you cannot say, okay, we follow the lowest common denominator, go and do 30 days, right? Because the guy who has got the country that you have a 1-day notification period will say, sorry, you follow my standard, not the lowest standard. Same thing, if you have some countries where you don't have to notify and some that you have to notify, you will actually have to think about those countries where you don't have to notify, because once they hear from the other regulators that, hey, how come in this country you reported, but in our country you didn't report? You might just offend the regulator. Most of them have got investigative powers. Then the next thing to expect is one whole team of government people at your door wanting to take a look at your logs. May not be the best thing that you want to do. We know that in Singapore we do have a brand reputation, and we are trying to develop this brand reputation that we are better than most countries when it comes to cybersecurity. I must say they are managing that brand quite well, because the reality may not be the case. But I think it's something that we still want to work at. We need to be much better at cybersecurity management than what we currently are at. So there's still a lot of work to do after that. Trust me, the teams that we've been working with, a lot of them spend, 30 to 60 days, almost no sleep, because the number of things that are happening at one time, you don't know what hit you, you don't know how bad it is, you don't even know, hey, how come my company's been collecting this kind of data until the report comes out. So all of that stuff you are trying to then assemble as fast as possible, and that's a big challenge.
Thanks. Right, James, so when the if became a when, how would, example, your organization, what's the first one or two things they will do apart from shutting down the electricity?
Actually, the first thing that we look at here is I always ask for a network plan. That's the first thing, physical. And then after that, I get my security folks in. So the infrastructure and the security folks are in the same room together with me. And then we say, okay, now, whatever that phenomenon that we are seeing now, which segment of it? And then, because Farrer Park is a new organization, it's a greenfield, so what we did was, when I designed this network, I make sure that I have the ability to do virtualization, segment out, customer, public, things like that, healthcare, and then hospitality and corporate. So the whole idea here is, I always get the impression that, look, if one day something hits the fans, so the thing is, which one will I shut off first? So that is actually how I will usually do the containment. So, and then after that, working with the team, I say, okay, can we make it smaller, smaller area? And worst case, if you can't do it virtualized, then I will really go to that particular floor, I will unplug it. That is the worst case, and that's actually your best answer to anything for now.
Thanks. Okay, before I go on to Alvin, the takeaway from both Brian and James is what? When somebody going to pull out your plan, network plan or your panic plan, so the point is you need to have a what to do, an incident response plan first, which is again the message, not so much, because if you didn't have that, then you'll be shooting in the dark. So, okay, Alvin, yes, your proactive recovery, you're 2 steps forward faster than the if and when. So, yes, tell us about the proactive recovery recommendation.
I'll share with you a real example. There was a company in Malaysia. It was during the stage whereby there were quite a number of attacks in Malaysia, and this was a state-owned company in Malaysia. And they suspect that they have been infiltrated. So the first thing, again, like what my previous 2 panelists was talking about, assessment, network plan, and so on and so forth, and etc. Then he came to me and said, can we buy more firewalls? Then I said, well, yeah, you can, but that's not the solution I'm going to prescribe to you, because I think you need to first identify where is the problem. Because you can't just anyhow go in and try to rectify a solution without knowing what's the cause and where is it from. For all you know, it could be a simple thing like, shut down your email server, for example, hypothetically speaking. So understand that, and that's why I always stress about the importance about understanding the business workflow and the business structure. The other thing that I actually said to him was, you have an NOC. Let's go to your NOC. I saw in the NOC he has a network engineer and he has a security professional there. I asked him a third question, where's the BA, the business analyst? He said, why is he important? I said, the BA will be able to identify, over and above what these 2 guys are, your business workflow. So if let's say server A runs Oracle, server B is dependent on Oracle to execute the business process management for your company, server A is infected, server B is definitely affected. So you can look at how to mitigate against customer dissatisfaction. So he took that advice and started working down that route with me, and he was quite grateful. In the end, he did buy more firewalls, which I was very happy, right? But the point was that the first reaction wasn't to buy more firewalls, but to investigate what went wrong, where is it, how to contain it, and then how to proactively take the right steps to prevent that. The other thing that we spoke about was how to communicate to the media. Now, I know I'm Fortinet, I'm supposed to be selling products and services and solutions, and that's not my business and stuff. But I shared with him, it's better for the news to come from you to the media than from a leak from internally to the media, because you're going to get a whole bunch of rumors and stuff coming back to you, whereas you can put the facts out. So that's why it's very important for you to first know what went wrong. That's why the what went wrong is really key. And that's what I would recommend.
Thank you, Erwin. Okay, so Ken, so the moment you discovered suddenly you have Russian and Polish employees, what the organization do moving forward as a policy?
Okay,
not the technical point of view, but the policy and management point of view.
So I think above this, I am a very traditional practitioner. So I still people process technology. So people-wise, I think whenever something hit, the first thing that is most important thing is communication. So I'm very practical. You do a WhatsApp group, enough already. Right? So do you have a company-wide WhatsApp group? So when something happened, you just tell everybody suspected something. So everybody is in line, is on the same page, number one. Number two is then try to investigate. So then you move on to process. We are listed co, so no choice, a lot of things to comply to. And then we have BCM plan, then we have the ERM, the boring thing. But today, we have cyber entry inside. We have to do that, right? So I find something very useful is that we have tabletop dry run. Very interesting. So we just had one last month. Wow, we found out so many things. We thought we are very good already, But after that, we realized that there are so many gaps. First thing, the facilitator came in and said, today, your company is hacked, everything stopped. What is the first thing you do? Everyone look at IT department. Wow, very stressful. So I try to avoid the eye contact. My infra head get all the things. So he said, first thing to do, of course, is investigation. Wow, the facilitator is so experienced. After answering this, the next thing is even more difficult. How do you investigate? When you are so gabra, what is the next thing you do? Tell me. Then everyone look at him. Now he look at me. Because he got no answer. You know why? I'm not doing advertisement, but you really need to have a good tool, right? So just like James, we have used Darktrace, all right? The whole thing is not because of the specific tool. It's the tool that, does it allow you to do a quick extraction of things, a very quick understanding and visualization of where it's going wrong when you are Gabra, Do you have time to go to the firewall and look at the log? SIEM tool to look at all the dashboard? No way. So we need something that is fast, go inside, there is a threat intelligence help to help you, things like that. So that actually helps. So again, then technology is another thing, very big topic. I may not have time, I think there's indication there.
Okay, thanks. Very comprehensive perspective from the learned professionals. Now, okay, we have time for one question. Anything that you totally need to disagree with or would like to ask the learned gentleman, and we'll try and address it. We've got 5 minutes. Is there any questions from the floor about the what and the if? Yes, sir. The mic's with you.
Hi, my name is Louis. I'm from SI background. Throughout the years, I observed many customers, they don't have proper documentation of their infrastructure. Not to mention the accurate one. Even those that have might not be accurate. So my question is, this day everybody is talking about AI-based tools, self-learn. To me, right, these are automated tools. There must be some kind of false positive. So without proper verification, using the hard document that you have, and without this document at all, can you do an effective incident response?
I think as in anything, artificial intelligence or not, I think everything we must have our what you call our workflow, our processes. So people, process, technology, these are the things you can't run away. These are basic bread and butter, right? So if you were to look at that, if you look at so-called AI-based, I'll put it at the top. It's seated on that. And below that, the foundation says that, look, you still need to have your paperwork. You still need to have your processes, right? So detection coming from an AI, coming in from a firewall, or coming from a hack, at the end of the day, you still come back to your standard SOP, how do you isolate, how do you identify, how do you rectify, all that. You can't run away. So now, the question on AI is this. I also have this thing about, look, if they say, all right, you have a hack, okay, no. They usually come in a few streams saying that there are certain incidents that is worth checking up to me, I call it incidents of interest. You know why? There are so many of them, right? So at the end of the day here is we say, okay, why don't we filter only those that are really very key to us? So we have to configure the system until it's like instead of like 1,000 warnings coming through, we move it down to maybe about 10 or 20 of them. So the risk is that there's the other 980 that I'm not seeing, right? But having said that, is like I rather focus on the 20 because I can't do 1,000, right? So once I have that, then from there, then we start narrowing it and just say, these are the two that is worth following up. Other than that, the rest I'll just... So at the end of the day, my story is this, right? AI here is AI. At the end of the day, humans still have to be the one that is checking through, right? So it's a collaboration between artificial intelligence, machine learning, and human. Humans still reign supreme. Let's put it this way. So there's job for human, after all. Yeah, that's how I would do it.
Maybe I have something to add, and this is about very interesting thing about past projects. So one of the other things we do is outsourcing legal work. One time we were called in to look at a project that went into a dispute. Interestingly, the SI, and obviously the SI was given the project by the customer. The SI tried to be smart, outsource it again. So outsource it to people. The problem is once it went to dispute, the SI realized it didn't know who it outsourced it to. All disparate individuals in another country, cannot find anybody, obviously no documentation. And I think these are some of the old practices that we've been doing before, which are now coming home to roost. We put up systems, we put up design networks without any documentation. That will now be a thing of the past because one, cybersecurity demands it. If you get an investigation, the CSA sends a team down, they said, let's have a network plan. Oh, don't have. Who did it for you? Cannot remember, don't know, the last guy. So that's all going to be a problem. That must change. The other thing that will also change is we always used to say, wow, this data better keep just in case. Don't know why we need it, but just in case is good. So you got data lying all around whether you need it or not. That's another old practice that we have to now ask ourselves, actually, do we really need to keep all this kind of stuff, do this kind of things? So quite a number of practices already should start changing from now on, and that will only help us in the future.
I think I will just add to that. I think to answer your question with regard to the documentation aspect, I think there are quite interesting tools right now, especially in those so-called ITSM, ITIL compliant asset management systems. And because of the cyber threat, I think it's becoming very relevant of this sort of tool to link to incidents response. Because how it links is an art. Because how it's updated is also an art. I am actually exploring something like this, but I would say I'm not totally mature in this yet to link to the cyber response. But it does help me, one glance, I know what are the critical assets that I should look into in times of governance. Yeah.
Alvin, your comment. Alvin, comment on documentation.
There are tools today that will help you overcome this documentation issue. Then the role of AI is what Ken was talking, to amalgamate everything together. But the value of AI comes from the fact that you establish a baseline. What is normal so that you know what is abnormal. And again, it goes back to having skilled people to be able to fish out, or for the AI to be able to tell you what are those more interesting areas for you to look at so that these people can do the necessary investigation. One more thing about threats that I just want to bring up is there is a role for reporting. Reporting from a standpoint of bringing in law enforcement. And I got this from a discussion with a brigadier general from who heads up the SOC for the US Armed Forces. She said this to me. She says that if you don't report on a cyber crime or on a breach or on an attack, what happens is that you are constantly fighting against digital bullets, okay? What you should go after is the perpetrators, because once you catch these guys, the digital bullets disappear. So that's why she was saying that we need a more concerted effort, nationally and globally, to report, to get law enforcement in the picture so that we can find ways and means of apprehending these perpetrators, and at the same time, make it difficult, make the industry unattractive. Because currently, right, cyber crime is a very attractive industry to many of the people who are hard-pressed for money.
Thank you, Alvin. Unfortunately, all good things have to come to an end. So once again, I'd like to ask you to thank my expert panelists from technology lawyer Brian, CIO of heavy industry Ken, CIO of healthcare James, and Chief Security Strategist Alvin. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Wait, we need a picture. You know, it's always must have a picture.